Welcome to Bear Lifestyle, the podcast where we speak up and speak out about all taboo topics and make them normal and acceptable. You are invited to be curious, to try something new, and stay open to provocative perspectives. I'm your host, Simona Spark, a best-selling author, international speaker, transformational coach, and so many other things. Beyond anything else, I'm a woman who stopped following other people's rules and started creating my own. In this space, we are going to get naked by stripping away insecurities, self-judgments, and all kinds of limitations so we can reach in for the essence of who we really are, Bear. Beautiful, authentic, real, and ever evolving. Thanks for listening. Do you have your drink?
I got my drink today. I'm celebrating with a cup of tea with condensed milk, because that's the milk they have here in Bali, where I'm from, Ubud, Bali.
Well, cheers to you. I'm
Cheers.
celebrating with tea, no milk.
What
No
sort
milk.
of tea? Just regular black tea?
Blueberry, chamomile, and ginger.
Wow. So you got the kind of chamomile that mellows you out and a ginger wakes you up again.
Yeah, so then I'm back in balance.
Yeah, perfect.
So now that we sorted the beverages,
Yeah.
I think the most important thing, not the most, we have quite a few important things today, is first of all, to introduce you to this audience. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Very excited.
So this is my significant other, everyone, as I announced in a previous episode. So he's here today for 3 different reasons, and many others that we will reveal as we go. The first one is to celebrate with me 1 year since we opened this podcast. Cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
And I want to thank all of you for being here for a year, or even since last episode. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we have 52 episodes that you could just go back and listen and review and get inspired. Number 2, we are here to celebrate. This weekend is 1 month since we met.
That's right.
1 month. That feels like 3 years.
Yeah.
7, 10.
Yep.
A month ago. Can you believe it?
No, I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to feel like, because it feels like an eternity. Actually, it feels longer than a month. Actually, It feels way longer than a month, somehow.
Yeah. And we're going to get into details with that. I just say longer because I've been in quite a few relationships throughout my life, and a month was a month every time.
Yeah.
And this time it's not. So I just want for me to acknowledge the difference. And number 3, we want to announce that moving forward, from next week on, that will be season number 3, year 2 of the podcast, we're gonna co-host this damn thing.
Very exciting. I've never co-hosted a podcast before.
Well, I did, but this is different because we are in a Bear space. And as I, being transparent for the past year about my own personal journey and discovers and wonders and such, here I am doing all of that, including you, and displaying, if you wish, our relationship. And I'm just forever grateful that you are willing to do that. So
yeah,
what led you to want to do that? Do you remember that conversation when we decided?
Well, I was just going to say, I do remember the conversation
Sorry.
because I thought, I'd had this idea and I thought, well, it may be really cool to do something together, particularly as, we are physically over the other side of the world from each other. And it would be good to do something that brings us together. Also, I just like the idea of doing something in real time when you don't know the end. You have no idea where this is going to go. And rather than, I tend to think that often when people talk about relationships and things like that, they talk about them in the present, looking back.
Yeah, on hindsight, like what happened.
Exactly. And rather than talking about them as it's happening,
Right.
in the present moment, how we're feeling now, what sort of things are we having to overcome right now, rather than looking back with hindsight, either catastrophizing what went wrong or, overblowing what went right. So hopefully we can be more authentic about what we're actually experiencing in the moment. So I had this idea. Yeah, I had this idea, and I thought, I don't know if I should say anything to Simona. I've got this idea. Maybe she'll think, I'm trying to, jump in on something she's already doing. But then we just, I can't remember how it came up in conversation.
Well, it was very late for you
yeah,
in Surabaya and very morning for me in LA. And I don't know exactly how you say it. Besides, what I remember is like, hey, how you feel about like just talking about our relationship, as you say, in the present time, and so many other people could benefit and relate with, right? Especially a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out because, and that night I was making notes and I just pull out the flashcard. Remember I showed you the flashcard? So it's like literally hours prior our conversation when I make notes about relationship, where is it going, talk about it, and I have question mark Tim podcast, Bear podcast.
Yeah, it was really one of many things that keep coming up that kind of freak us out about, things that we think at the same time or have in common that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
That we now don't put down to coincidence.
Yes. No more coincidences. We're done with that.
Yeah.
We fire coincidences and we promote to executive position the word connection. That's where we are going. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good way to look at it.
I like how agreeable you are. So, but talking about the relationship in the present time, also, I want to remind everyone there listening and watching that we open a Instagram account for this podcast specifically, a Bear Lifestyle Show. So we want to invite everyone to follow there. We have like 3 followers and 2 of them is the 2 of us. But the reason I opened that is not to, look at the numbers of followers or whatever the shit the media tell us to do, but to open that messaging box to for you guys to DM us your questions, your concerns, if you're interested in specific topic, if you have like very specific question about long distance relationship or dating or how you deal after, I don't know, being with someone after a marriage 2, 3 or whatever, like so much, right? Because we are in a certain age here, and too often I hear people, women especially, like don't trust themselves to find the one. What's the conversation in the man world? What do you know?
It depends how cynical you are as a man. I've been burned before. I don't trust women, or going through some kind of midlife crisis. So, all of the baggage that comes with that.
About women or about men?
About women.
About women. Okay, so they come with baggages, but okay, I see where we're going. Double standards, as usual in general.
Precisely. Yeah. Oh,
Got it.
we should talk about midlife crises, actually. I called it a midlife awakening. It was much better.
Oh, I mean, talking about putting things in a positive statement.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
No, I think we should save it for another show.
He's not ready, you guys. We save it for another episode. So,
Yeah.
but for this episode, can we circle back to the connection? Because we just promoted
Yeah.
that to a executive position and we
Yeah.
fire coincidences, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious before we have this conversation here, just for our audience to put in the comments or to DM us on Instagram account. Like, what's connection for you? How do you know that you are connected with a person? Well, let you know that that connection is real, right? And I'll go to say that what I thought the connection is between people, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, shit, even a year ago, it's totally different than I think that is now. Where are you at, Tim?
Yeah, in many ways, I think connection has been redefined by our relationship for me.
Mm.
It's definitely something that has changed in general in my life. You know, it used to be much more mechanical. Like I had a list of things and I'm like, if these criteria are fulfilled, then, you know, then we're connected, you know.
Yeah.
Now it's much more intuitive. It's like, you know, I'm, you know, and it's more embodied.
Mhm.
Like it's like not just like, oh great, oh yeah, oh you're into folk music too, oh fantastic, oh you like horses, great, you know, it's, you know, oh you like nature, you know. Now it's just like it's more of a kind of a feeling. It's an embodied feeling, and I think partly because of I'm much more aware of my body and my mental and spiritual emotional state than I used to be.
Mm.
Those subtle things are much more alive to me now than they used to be.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's key, right?
Yeah.
Because we look back, and I think I could speak for a lot of people, like how we just like hold tight on those superficial things that you just mentioned, few of them, right? Uh, and it's not because that's what we choose, it's because we didn't know who the hell we are,
Yeah.
right? So as we evolve and as we get closer to who we really are, Bear, right? It's
Mm,
like, oh, okay, so now I'm connecting at the deeper level because that it's available.
mm,
If I
yeah.
only look at myself strictly for what I see in the mirror, you know, like body shape and color of the eyes and whatever, like that, that's what I'm connecting.
Mm,
When I know who I am inside that you cannot see in the mirror, another space it's available to
yeah.
connect with.
Yeah. I sort of think about, I mean, I think this is more of a metaphor, I think, maybe than reality. Although, you know, perhaps it isn't. Perhaps there is something metaphysical about it. But, you know, they have done quantum physics experiments where they've, you know, set off, you know, one electron, you know, over one side of the world and over the other side of the world. And when one changes spin, the other changes spin, you know, and then so these subatomic particles are somehow connected, although they haven't figured out how, right? So that's when I think, you know, when we're talking about so-called coincidences, you know, I think that actually that, you know, across time and space, there's something going on there where we led these separate lives, you know, and yet there was something that was connecting us even before we met. And, you know, and even now across distance, you know, there are these things that come up.
Yeah,
And
I believe that. Like even in a coaching, like doing a lot of identity work, and those of you that are in this space understand parts work. So yeah, I believe there are many parts that belong to us. They're living somewhere, and those parts already met.
Mm. Yeah.
And that when we get into a point in the present when we call it coincidences, it's just this parts already meet physically, like in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of my favorite topics. I'm talking about quantum physics. I think we could stay after this for hours.
Yeah. Although I should say I'm not a quantum physicist, I'm an agriculturalist.
Bit of a
But
difference, and yet,
yeah.
We have access to all this knowledge that we are interested in and eager to learn more and experiment and understand and see where that is in our life. So we speak from that place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that you say the connection even in the present when there is a whole world between us. And it reminds me of, oh my God, I still get those glimpses of sayings I heard or I read, and I don't know who said, was talking about that being connected close to someone, it's not because you're just sleeping in the same bed. It's not just because you are living in the same house. It goes beyond that. And long story short, was referring to how do you know that you are connected and you are close to a person? And I fully resonate with that. And for everybody could look differently, is that I get to be me with that person. I get to be me. I don't need to hide. I don't need to pretend. And more than that, I get to show up, vulnerable or messy or whatever. And I feel seen and I feel understood and cared for. And that was a feeling that I had with you, like day two. So that let me know, like, this connection is real, because it goes beyond, great kisses and amazing sex. This goes beyond that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, there was definitely that ability to be vulnerable and feel feel the ability to as you say, open up, just be authentic self. I heard someone the other day, I think it was on the Jay Shetty podcast, In Purpose, say, like, when you go on a first date, you're not meeting them, you're meeting their representative.
I like that. Yes, like 99.99%, they put a facade, right?
But with you, I knew I was meeting you bang on, and we were like, we were straight into, it felt, as we talked about before, there was that sort of instant spark of recognition. It was a recognition. It was like, oh, I recognize you, like I know you.
Yeah. And we're gonna elaborate more on that next week.
Yeah.
When we dive into the details of how we met and how the first day progressed.
So there was that familiarity. There's that familiarity, from, we were discovering things that were obviously new, that we didn't know, but it felt familiar. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, oh, how weird. It was like, it's this unraveling of layers of each other.
I like that, because looking back at multiple dates that I had for the past years, that was one thing, because like my intention was very clear, to just be open and honest and myself, and be available for somebody that could do life the same, right? So, but every now and then I will have a moment of feeling nervous. And a while ago, if I will feel nervous or I feel that I need to pretend or hide, I will put it on the other person. I will blame on the other person that, oh, you make me uncomfortable, like shit like that, right? But this time I was looking like, what am I nervous about? Because that 100%, like only 100% of the time, I was nervous because I was hiding something. Because it's like, you know, in your heart that you want to be authentic. And when you're not feeling good, but it's between you and you, has nothing to do with the other person, you know?
Yeah.
Like for me personal, that was like a huge discovery. I'm like, I really, first of all, free myself from blaming other people. For second, I'm actually in charge of having a good time all the time, regardless what the other people are doing.
Yeah.
Because it's on me, you know? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you're in charge of your own feelings.
Yeah.
And how you deal with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Absolutely.
people, they're whatever, assholes or whatever they are, is like, I could just get up and leave and let them live their own life.
You have complete agency over that. Otherwise, you're giving them control over your life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, yes, I give you permission to make me nervous.
Man.
Yeah.
So what I remember now, and I don't know how this is going to connect, but we're just going to make it connect, is that last week I was talking about dating, and I was talking about how, you know, love between people evolved. And I really meant to talk about the love languages test, and I forgot. So we're going to talk about it today.
Oh, right. Yes.
Which I will put in description, the link to the test. It's a free test. Probably most of people is familiar with it. It's an amazing test. Like any other quizzes that we take, I mean, I'm a big fan of quizzes. I don't know where people are. It's not a absolute, but it's quite a interesting description. If you, first of all, of course, you have to be honest in your answers, to just look like from the 5 languages. Of course, we have them all, but kind of to see like what's the order there. So, oh gosh, I should have written down. What is it? Help me out. Physical touch, act of service, quality time, gifts, and
the 5th one.
No.
I'm going to Google it.
Words of affirmation. There are 5 of them.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I discovered in previous relationships was that, and with others too, not just for myself, is like we tend to care for another person based on our language. And the trick is to show love and care to the other person based on their language. So it's like, the way that I understand it is, you know, like any other language. Like if I speak with you Romanian, just because that's my native language, you won't hear me because you don't speak it. So I have to speak a language that you understand.
I do love it when you count in Romanian, though.
Well, I can't do math in English or numbers.
I know, that's why it's so cute.
Numbers, math, and all of that will only going to happen in Romanian. It cannot be happening in English. So I do want to insert this here because it's important, and another, like, just as a tool, right? Because I mean, we are looking for help. I mean, I know I've been looking for help for years. Like, who could tell me, who could advise me? So I was looking for advice, but also for not a healthy space. Like, I need you to tell me exactly how it's going to happen. Like anyone could, right? And if that it didn't happen, again, to blame me, like you were wrong, you know? So in this phase, I try to bring as many tools as possible of like, just kind of give you a little guidance, and then just make it your own and see how it applies. Nothing it's final, nothing it's absolute. And even with this love language, it gets to evolve as the relationship evolve, and which is very interesting to just pause and look at it every now and then. What are your
So as I recall, I think we may have even, well, we talked about this. I think we may have even talked about it on our first date.
Did we on a first date? Okay.
We
Well,
might
it was a long first date.
Well, I remember we definitely talked about it, and I'm pretty sure it might have even been like on our very first day.
I know gifts, it's one of yours.
No, well, no, because my top are quality time, physical touch,
Yeah,
and I think maybe gifts, maybe third or something. I feel, and I feel a little. I always feel a little guilty about that because I don't consider myself to be a materialistic person. But if someone gives me even the smallest thing, like something really stupid, like a toy out of a Kinder Surprise egg or something like that, but it's like they've thought about me,
right.
like I really love it, and I also love if I find something that I know someone will like or that they're not expecting, particularly out of the blue gifts, not birthdays or Christmas, things like that, just completely like, I was thinking of you and I found this.
We are definitely connecting there. But I really appreciate you say that, you have a certain feeling around, loving gifts. And it's huge because most people, myself included, we don't know how to receive. Or, it's like we've been called selfish or we've been called whatever, right? So you grow up with this mentality like, oh my God, it's so wrong that I like gifts. Like, it's nothing wrong about it. And especially when it's like what that means to you. And you explain it so beautifully, like go deeper than something in a wrapping paper. Is like somebody took a minute to think of me. Like that's like, it's a love language. It's an act of love. Like you are thinking of me when you pick up this. Yeah. And there is no difference than the other languages. Like, you consider me when you hold my hand. It's like gifts for me is the last. Not that I don't like them and not appreciate it. Maybe I still have a lot of hangups on the receiving. Who knows? But if you cover me in gifts every day, and when we are together, you not hold my hand, it's like, physical touch is number one. So it's like those are the languages, but most importantly is what that means to you. And then communicate it to your partner. Talk with each other.
So what are your top three then? Physical touch,
quality time, and if I'm not mistaken, last time when I took it, like act of service and words of affirmation were like equal. I will go with the words of affirmation before act of service, just because it's like, there is this part still, big part of me is like, I could do things for myself. I don't need people to do things for me, kind of limitation, right? Receiving as well in there too. But word of affirmation, I enjoy to under the umbrella of like being seen and recognized. And
I sort of think if someone is physically present with me, like quality time, and they're willing to touch and be touched by me, I need the words less. They're already showing me that I don't need it spelled out. That's how I think that's how I see it.
Yes, and it's exactly what I want to say. If I have the quality time, everything else goes in it because it's such a gift. Like I don't know a biggest gift than time. I cannot give you a biggest gift than waking up at 5 freaking in the morning to FaceTime with you or stay up and late. Like that's a gift.
Right.
No, so quality time, I feel like, and probably, and for all, everything goes in all. Everything is part of everything. So there you go. I just want to make a side note about this and end up with being a full conversation.
Yes.
That's how we go. So before we wrap this up, are you calling to any direction from everything that we talk? Or
well, I mean, we haven't even begun to talk about other things that we do to cope with distance. But perhaps I think they are related to the love languages.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like, well, part of, I think, what we're doing here, because one thing we know is we've got like probably another 7 weeks before we see each other again. It seems like a long
We
time.
agree to don't tell me. So
I know.
I'm not hearing that.
But before we have what we could call a proximal relationship versus a
Right.
distant relationship, is like we're using this time to get to know each other outside of a physical relationship.
Right.
Which is something that perhaps a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do these days. It's quite often, people get to know each other physically first, and then emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually second. So we're just spending hours just talking to each other, which is a pretty nice thing to do. It's pretty special to be able to spend that amount of time just getting to know each other.
Yeah, for me, it definitely extended and expanded the concept of intimacy.
Yeah.
That until, to not long ago, I was just looking at it like literally just, having sex. But to the communication and the things that we are talking about, and with all the vulnerability that's in it, it feels very intimate to me. And I think that's it. If somebody will wake me up in the middle of the night and say, hey, what's the secret, right? Tell me in one word, I will say communication.
Yeah.
Naked conversation. Metaphorically and literally, depends of the day.
Yeah. Another thing that we're just starting to discover is building a kind of erotic fantasy world with each other.
That's a full episode. Or better yet, we're going to make a series inside of the podcast.
All right, let's do that. But it's something that you can do distant from each other. You can, write things down, talk about them, and record them. Yeah. And do those sorts of things, and keep that part of the relationship alive, very much alive. In fact, not only alive, actually fuel it, stoke fire through imagination and embodied imagination too.
Yeah. And again, it is required to be open and vulnerable and ask for things and say the things.
Yeah.
So communication. I'm still landing on communication word for this, because it's like, and we have the opportunity to communicate in so many different ways and in so many different mediums, like you talk, you call, you FaceTime, you in Zoom, you Marco Polo, you send videos, you text. It's like, it's freaking amazing if you think about it, right? Like, that not even the whatever we have 15 hours time zone different, they just collapse, because I get the message and it's here. Regardless if you're the next day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Another part of that communication was actually setting some ground rules in some ways, like boundaries, boundaries. Like, for example, I remember asking you this fairly soon into this, was how do you feel about monogamy? And because, like, we'd only just met, and now you're the other side of the world. So are we in a committed monogamous relationship, or are we just kind of still dating, and we're saying, maybe we'll see, hopefully we'll see each other in a few months' time, and then see what happens. And
so the having the conversation about all the concerns that one might have, but also it's coming with the decision of what are you committed to, and who are you committed to? And I mean, before, who are you committed to? What are you committing to? Are you committed to be in a relationship, or are you committed to dating? I've been committing to dating for almost 3 years, so this conversation never happened. And when I was asked, like, oh, you're not free tomorrow, well, you have another date? Matter of fact, I do. And then I have this guy was like, oh, how many people you date? I'm like, as many as I want. Because I was committed to dating.
Yeah.
You know, so so good. That's another episode. Like, you bringing like a lot of good topics. I'm so excited. I'm excited to go back to this recording and take my notes. It's like, okay, we need to dive deeper into that, dive deeper into the other one.
Yeah.
Anything else on your list? Do you have a list? I see you looking down there.
I do. No, I wrote a few
list?
things down just after my meditation this morning.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, that was it. What was the other thing? Oh yes. Keeping commitments. Like, if we commit to having a chat with each other in my lunch hour, which is usually our usual foodie call time. You tell me not to call it. My lunch hour, your bedtime. Yeah, it's just like, that's the commitment. Or, you know, even doing this podcast, or if I say I'll record you a song, or whatever, it's just like, you know, commit to it, keep the commitment. As we would if we were living in proximity. Like, I wouldn't just stand you up and go, sorry, it was only I thought it was only lunch. I'd show up for lunch.
Right. But it's important that you say that, because this is not just for long distance relationship. This is for any relationship. And I will dare to say that most of relationships have problems right there. I know I did. Like not following through, or just come up with some bullshit 3 years old excuses of like, oh, I forgot. And it's like, I don't matter, you don't care, you don't follow, like, so much go into I forgot that I can't even begin to explain, right? So it's like, commit, show up, and life happen, and sometimes things don't happen, but like, Jesus, we have 17 ways of communicating to say, hey, I can't, something happened. Don't let me there waiting to say, oh, I forgot. So I think we need to put that on the list as well, as a full-on conversation about how we show up, and if we show up or follow through, right?
Yes. That's the end of my list.
That's the end of your list. For now. Okay, well, let's wrap this up, because it doesn't need to be longer than it needed to be. And you were talking about recording the song, so I do wanted to give you credit for the beautiful music that we are having in the next season. Everyone, he was playing that, and he composed that for us. So I'm very proud, and thank you.
My pleasure.
And I think in this space, I will see you next week, same time, same place. And we're just going to show up to let people into how we met and how the first date went, and all the surprises that we had.
Beautiful.
Anything you want to add?
No.
No?
I'm just going to flourish my handkerchief and call it a wrap.
We call it a wrap. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Happy 1-year anniversary. And I will see you. We will see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in today. I would love to hear from you. What inspired you? What triggered you? And what interests you? Please join the conversation by leaving your comments and your insights. Explore more about their experience at simonaspark.com/bear. I hope you listen, follow, rate, and review all of our episodes. I can't wait to have you back. Till then, be Bear. Beautiful, authentic, real, and ever evolving.